Over the last few years, it has been more tempting than ever for training gym owners to jump into the online training game. After all, we lose clients from time to time when they move away. Shouldn't we create a service to keep them as a member? In this video, I'm gonna give you the full skinny on how I think about this. Full skinny is a weird term. My name is Mark Fisher from businessforunicorns.com, and I'm gonna start by putting my cards right on the table. And what I'm gonna tell you is no, you probably shouldn't start an online training business. But more importantly, let's zoom out and talk about how I think about this. Now, on the one hand, as a gym owner, you usually want to offer more than just a single service. So for instance, if you only have one service, if you only offer, let's call it small group personal training 3 times a week, counts at any time. The reality is that's probably not enough diversity of offering, because there are gonna be some people that maybe only wanna train once a week, or maybe they'd be more likely to sign up for a year if you offered a different set of terms. And this line of thinking goes that if your current audience, your current clients you've worked so hard for to build, know, like, and trust, if they are looking to buy services that you could in theory also deliver, well, why would you be sending them away to another business? You might as well keep them in your orbit and not only grow the revenue and profit of your facility, but create even more impact on these people that you work so hard to build a relationship with. But on the other hand of this conversation, as a training gym owner, you do have certain constraints of time. There's only so many hours in the day, and complexity is the enemy of scale. Whenever you add a new service of any kind, particularly if it's not simply a variation of an existing membership, it always adds up very difficult to track costs of time, of mental energy, of complexity. They're not financial numbers. There's not an easy way to quantify the costs. So here's how I think about this at Mark Fisher Fitness. Now, MFF is an unusual gym, and not only because it's a strange, glittery unicorn rainbow gym in New York City, but because we're a pretty big place. So in my situation, I don't want to consider adding a one-off product or service unless it's going to bring in at least 30K in revenue and 10 grand of profit. And if it's an ongoing service with ongoing complexity, well, in that situation, I want to see 100 grand revenue on the year and a 30K profit. Your gym likely has a very different set of numbers. You likely don't need to make 100K revenue for your new service item. But what I would offer you is that for your gym, based on the numbers you do, based on the type of services you offer, there is some number, there's some clear financial terms of survival that it would behoove you to identify in advance before you launch this new service. Because too often, well-intentioned gym owners offer a service like online training, which frankly often is a misguided attempt to be loyal to existing members. Sometimes there's a mission-based reason to do it because I want to help and create impact on someone that I care about that is no longer the right fit for my other services. And in practice, quite often the whole adventure creates more of a cost of time and energy than it garners in increased profit or revenue. Now, admittedly, maybe in your head, you're thinking of a lower key version where you're planning to do this only with just a handful of clients. And I could see, you could make the case that, okay, well, if you're not marketing it externally, if it's not a big part of what you do, maybe there's a world you keep it in a little sandbox and it's just a few extra dollars per month. While not strictly wrong, more often than not, I'm gonna say this is the wrong decision. You are going fast in order to go slow. And we'd rather go slow to go fast. Because even that little bit of complexity, I promise you, I know it's not always intuitive, it's gonna have negative consequences. Because let's consider this, the operational and financial cost aside, there's also a mission cost. The reality is it's very hard to be good at things in a competitive world like service-based fitness businesses. And you know this, it took you a lot of work, a lot of effort, probably a lot of years to become good at delivering whatever your current services are. In closing, here's, I think, another way to think of this that can help you understand if it makes sense for you to consider offering a service like this. So before you commit to launching this new service, I want to offer a 3-part framework that comes from a very famous business book called Good to Great by Jim Collins. And in Good to Great, they talk about a 3-part framework that helps you understand if a service line actually makes sense for you. Number 1, does it really drive the business's number? Are you gonna make sufficient revenue and sufficient profit? I've shared with you those numbers for MFF, but ultimately, you need to decide for your business what the correct amount is for a given service to be deemed financially successful. Your pro tip here is you wanna write this down somewhere in advance, because too often these type of ancillary services just limp along because it's close to what we want, but it doesn't quite get there. So I think it's important to identify, right, what kind of revenues we need to do by when before we pull the plug. Number 2, can you be truly great at it? can you be absolutely awesome at it. Like we just mentioned, just because you're generally good at fitness stuff, you would have to master the nuances of delivering fitness results through, in some cases, a very different vehicle than you have education, you have experience, you have a track record of showing that you can get results in. And finally, the third piece of the framework I think is deeply underestimated, and that is this really a passion for you? Understand that if you don't love the thing, if you're not passionate about online training, for example, it's going to be unlikely that you will be able to give the process the amount of effort, time, energy it requires to become truly world-class at it. And if you're not world-class at it, you're probably not going to make a sufficient amount of money doing it. So the next time you see a well-intentioned client come up to you and say,
hey, what about this kind of service? Why don't you offer this? I mean, I know I would buy it. I'm already buying it anyway. I think this would be a no-brainer. All the other clients would like it.
Be wary, training gym owner. Take a moment and run this idea through this three-part framework, get clear on the financial terms for survival, and then you can make an educated decision whether this is gonna make sense for you and your business and your clients and your mission. All right, pals, this is Mark Fisher from businessforunicorns.com. I would love for you to go ahead and hit subscribe if you have not already, so that way you'll be alerted the next time I put up another video, which will be chock full of actionable tips, psychological frameworks, and of course, philosophy.